Hello, welcome to Art 13131. Sorry about not posting for Monday, but Tuesday's not too late in the day, in the week. And sometimes it'll happen that way, where I didn't post it on Monday, but by Tuesday. And if you're getting anxious, email me and, oh yeah, that's right, I'm going to post a video. And it's probably just because I got busy, but by Tuesday, usually they're up. And then another one maybe Wednesday or Thursday. Okay. And I want to mention again, because a few of you were confused about the due dates. Well, I say that it's due in March because that's the end of the term. But, as I mentioned several times before, it is best to complete your assignments and send them to me by the following week that they were posted. So if they're posted in week 1, complete them and send them your first attempt at them by the following week, which would be week 2. And this is how it would go through every week. That's so that you don't fall behind. But, however, I will accept and grade any of those assignments, except for the midterm presentation, which is down here. That's due in week 5, and only week 5. But any of these other assignments, if you want to improve on them and work on them a little longer, you can. And you can send them to me during the term, anytime. And I'll grade and accept them all the way to the last day. So that's why I leave the due date in March. But I do stress and say that it's best to complete them each week and send them to me by the following week. This way you can keep up on them. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Any questions, email me about that. Also, if you haven't tallied in that you're going to participate in the course, as I asked in an email about that, and several of you did, in fact, almost all of you did, except for a few. So if you are those few that haven't tallied in whether you're going to participate or drop or want me to withdraw you, then please do that immediately, because Wednesday, tomorrow at 5 o'clock, I need to withdraw you if you haven't communicated with me via email or sent any images or anything. So please do that if you're one of those ones that hasn't communicated yet or sent work. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's go into week 2, which is right here. We're already in week 2, and I'm going to talk about assignment number 3, which is kitchen items, still life. Anytime someone says still life, still, not steal, still life, no, it's still life, and that is when you set up a scene in front of you, you're going to draw right in front of you. So still life typically is like, a vase of flowers or several items kind of overlapping each other and making a composition of your scene you're going to draw, which is, going to be more interesting than not, meaning items that are uh, symmetrical or lined up straight and balanced across the picture plane is not as interesting as staggering them and overlapping them slightly so that there's kind of a randomness to it. And that is a lot more interesting than something sterile and just, so balanced out that it's boring. This is typical, but not, an absolute. Some people find other things interesting than other people. So I'm not saying it's always, but typically this is what a still life is made out of, and it does tend to be a little more interesting in my opinion. So that's what I'd like you to do. So the kitchen items can be utensils. I'll show you examples, or they can be utensils in a cup or a jar or a vase, kind of spreading out almost like a flower display, but only they're utensils. And I would like you to, use some wood and metal and maybe plastic utensils so that you have different surfaces, different textures you're going to try to draw. And of course, in achieving the texture, that is all involved in the tones you're using. And tones vary from very light all the way up to very dark, and including white and black. Totally blackened out tone is a tone, and the white, leaving it completely white, could be another tone, a very light one. And then about 7 different levels of tones, from light to a little darker, all the way up into the darkest tones. Now, this was all discussed in the videos I provided on light logic, and also holding the pencil for shading. So you want to make sure you have watched those, and maybe several times, to really get the gist of it. Because in any item is the same as that apple or the ball discussed in the shading. So there's light coming from a single light source, right? Left or right, maybe straight on, which is not going to work as well. Left and right is better, top, left, right, front of that, maybe. But at least so that there's a darker side and a lighter side, or a shadow side and a side that is being lit up by your light source. And then you're going to represent that by the light and dark tones. On the light side is going to be lighter because that's where the light is hitting. Then it gradually, depending on the shape of your object, gradually gets into the darker shadow side where the light isn't hitting. And that's going to be the darker tones. This all tells your audience or your viewer what the shape is of your object, your subject. And they wouldn't know otherwise. If you left it without shading, it might just be flat, because there's no shading to tell your audience that it's round or square or cubes or jagged or smooth or rough. This is all done with the tones, because the tones tell if something is rough or smooth by how shiny you're going to make it appear through your shading. So it's all through the shading. And you need to watch those videos again, and maybe even go on to YouTube or Bing again, YouTube, and you can find videos on shading, and many more than I posted, and really get into it, and really, because that's really a lot of this course. You may have to research a little bit more on your own. And I'll give examples as you send your work to me, and push along to complete the assignments. You may get it returned to you and say, hey, try this, look at this video, look at this example, and try shading a little differently to get this achieved in a better way for a better grade. And that's going to happen all through the term. You can have a possibility of receiving a better grade anytime on any of these assignments, right up to the last day. Okay, that's why I left a due date at March, but it's best to send them and get them completed, your first attempt anyway, by the following week that they were posted. Okay, so I'm going to show you some examples of what I'm talking about. Here's a drawing, and as you can see, it's got the dark and light tones. If you look at this, the light source is coming from the top left here, or anyway, the left. There's cast shadow from the objects on the right. That means the light's coming from the left, because the shadow follows in that line of light and on the side where the light isn't hitting. Right? Okay, and same with on the cup, the glass. The glass is a little different because it is transparent, but part of it will be lit up a little, and then there's darker areas that as they go through the glass. You'll see them when you set up your still life. You'll see where the lights and darks are. And this is something that for the beginners, if they've never noticed this out of every object you're looking at in life, there's lights and darks to it because of the light hitting it from your light source. Typically outside, there's a single light source. It's the sun. Inside, if you're going to draw inside, use the window only, no lamp, or just one lamp. So you have a single light source. This is going to make the strongest possibility of conveying the shape of these objects, because you have one single light source, not many, that are showing onto your object. I'm just going to leave a shiny side, a lit up side, and a darker shadow side. And then it's easy to show the shape. You know this cup is round because the light is hitting here, and it gradually starts getting darker on the other side. And our brains perceive that because we've been looking at this since, toddlers. And you perceive, before touching something, what the shape is. Because of the light hitting it, you realize that. And you haven't touched it yet, you don't really know, but our minds are trained to look at that lighting on that object and go, oh, that's round, or that's flat, or that's rough, or shiny, or smooth, because it's shiny. Okay, let me show you another one. Oh, that's not it. Sorry. Here's another one. And as you can see, it's coming from the right side, the light source, because there's cast shadow on the surface of the table on the left. And the left side of all the objects is a little darker in tone. The glass is more shiny, so it's picking up a shiny part right here and another one here, but the rest of it's kind of dark, but then it gets darker on the other side. The cork is darker on one side and lighter on the other, except for that little reflection mark right there. And you'll find that. Look, just all you have to do is study what's in front of you, what your still life is that you've set up. Maybe something like this. I realize this does not have any of the kitchen items in it, but these could be kitchen items on their own. So you could just set up something like this without utensils, or you could set up something with utensils. Like this one. Has some utensils on the table, an apple maybe. That's a kitchen item. If it's in your kitchen, it's an item. So it's an item from the kitchen. Now you'll notice that the background is either darker or lighter in these. You can choose. You can actually make it darker up here and lighter down here. But what you want to do is have your background be a different tone than your subject matter, so that they separate themselves. If they're similar, they're going to get lost with each other. So if this tone was the same tone as the background, it would get lost. You wouldn't know that the table meets the background. So to get that across, you have to have either a lighter or a darker background than your table and subject matter. In this particular drawing, it is darker than the subject. But you see all the cast shadow. Light's coming from the right side. Cast shadows on the left side of everything. And the glass is see-through, but so that you're seeing various sort of smoky, ghosty images in here as you're looking through the glass, because the glass distorts image, it distorts light. And so you're seeing that here. And it picks up light, shiny, reflections, and other parts are darker. So like right here, it's dark because it's picking up the dark background, because the table is only represented down here. That's because the glass distorts the image in behind it. And you'll see that. If you set up something glass like that, you'll start noticing that there's lights and darks in there, reflection marks on the glass, and distorted image in the back from the glass, or through the glass. And you get that all on your paper through light and dark tones. Okay, let me show you another one. This one has just the utensils spread out on the table, but don't put them straight like you're setting a table setting. Overlap them, and lean one on the other, and have one over the other. This is more interesting than something straight across. And of course, you see all the shadowing. The light here tends to be straight coming down, kind of like here, although the knife is a little deceptive because it looks like the light's coming from back here and the light is coming from here. So this one's a little confusing, although it is a strong drawing. It may be that this, yeah, I think, okay. So the light is coming from this way, and the fork is up above, so it is creating a shadow underneath. So it's kind of like coming from maybe this direction. It's a little confusing, but it is a strong drawing nonetheless. It has a lot of contrast. Here's another one. And kitchen items, there's a utensil, a cup, a glass, an apple. There's reflection, cast shadow of the glass on the table back here that isn't completely dark because light is coming through the glass and hitting the table. But it's distorted. There's dark and lights to it. You'll notice this if you've set something up like that. What I also want to point out is the lisps. They are the oval shape at the top and bottom of cups and glasses. So, it's not straight across here because you're looking down into these cups slightly. It's the position you're in. Now, if you lowered yourself in a chair or stood up and looked over them, all that perception would change. If you looked over into this cup, it would be round. And as you sit down again and keep looking at it, it starts creating this oval shape. It's called an ellipse. And there's one at the bottom too, because the whole thing is round. It doesn't all of a sudden get straight down here just because it's sitting on the table. That's the mistake a lot of students make, is they draw the bottom ellipse straight or the bottom of the cup straight because, that's sitting on the table, it must be straight. No. If you look and you study, and this is an awareness thing of perception and tones and light and dark tones I'm talking about, light source and all of that, and also their perception of the shape from where you're looking. Your eye view changes everything. Okay, if you were to raise these cups up, grab one and raise it up to eye level, you wouldn't see an ellipse at all. It'd be straight across then. So it depends on where you're looking. If you're sitting at a table in a chair, usually you're looking at the top angle, looking sort of down into the cups, and that's what you want to get across to your viewer. And to reiterate about that, let's look at some ellipses. This is why the ellipses are there, because in round containers, despite their actual shape, this is not a complete cylinder, neither is that one. This one's more of a cylinder with a top neck, but the whole thing tends to be round at one point or another in its shape. And you'll see here by these lines that are showing the shape of the outside of the container all the way down as they go down, that it's round. So when you're looking down at these, kind of down into them, there's a little bit of an oval. That's the ellipse. Well, that continues on throughout the container. If this had some wine in it, then there would be an ellipse right here, or down here, or in the stem. And then typically, the ellipse gets larger as you go down. It's because your eye level, this is the top of the container, is closer to your eye level, on the same level as your eye level. So it's getting less of an ellipse. The further you go away from your eye level and down or up, the ellipse gets larger. So that would be like if you were to take this container and grab it and raise it above to your eye level straight across, you wouldn't see any ellipses. Then you start raising it up above your head as you're going up looking at it, you'll see the bottom ellipse start appear and the top in an opposite direction. So it is semi-confusing, but not all that confusing when you really think about it. Here's another one with just a list, but it is, again, kitchen items that are out. You don't have to have you can have something like this, but don't put one or two. Have several. Let's say 4, because then you're going to have a composition. One just Boring. Okay, let's have 4. I'll say that again. 4. Because, or 4 or more. Because that's more interesting. So don't send me one because I'm going to send it back and say, hey, can you add a few more to this? But you see the lisp here. It's a slight lisp. It's not straight. This is a curve. And then you have a curve here on both sides, which tends to be sort of an oval shape, which is called the lisp. Same with the top here and here. This is almost at eye level, so you see a little lisp, right? In fact, I could find another breakdown of that and maybe include that in here if I can. Anyway, here's more. If you want to avoid that whole lisp thing, we're going to talk about that later in week 9. There's going to be a whole drawing about that, lisps, and we'll talk about more. But if you're going to put containers out, then beware of your lisps. You'll see them if you look for them and draw them in. So this has a lot of shadowing. It's got wood, metal, mostly wood, and then a glass, looks like a glass sort of vase on its side here, and then another little surface here and another surface. So this is maybe a cutting board or something like that. But you see all the cast shadow. You see the shadows on the other sides, and the spoons have a shadow on the opposite side because that's where the light isn't hitting. They dip in right there, and then they go over on this side and they come up again, and that's where the light's hitting. So the shadow side on the cast shadow is on way over here. But when you're showing something with a curved dip gouge out of it like this, same with cups, same thing. You're going to have a darker area on this side than that side because the light is hitting here from this direction and not hitting here as much because it's kind of covered up. I can show you that in the cup too. Here, this is the light is coming from the left, kind of lit up here, a little darker there, darker here, little reflection mark here. But the inside of the cup, it's darker on the inside right here on the left side because the left side's covered up. And then it's lighter on the right side, sort of back in here, because that's hitting. The light is hitting inside the cup there. No, the opposite is true on the outside of the cup. So the inside and the outside sort of reverse in the light source hitting on that surface. I hope that makes sense. If not, let me know. Okay, so that's a bunch of good examples. You can pause on any of these, and you can ask questions on any of them as well. And let's get started and see what you can come up with. Like I say, put 4 or 5 or more objects on the table, not just 1 or 2. Please. All right, so we're going to talk about the next assignment, so I'll do that maybe tomorrow or the next day. The upside down drawing, which I will provide a drawing for that. It's not that you get a drawing or you make a drawing that's upside down. I'm going to provide a drawing that you set up upside down, and then you draw it upside down. And I'll tell you why in the video. And I'll provide it either in an email attachment or some other way. Maybe I can put it on for you to download. So we'll discuss that in a couple of days or maybe tomorrow. And then there is a drawing your feet for the homework. Again, shadowing, shading, all that is coming into play to show the shape of your foot. Toes and feet typically have a rounded surfaces to them in various places, okay, that show their shape. And so the light is going to hit on one part of it and not so much on the other. And there's all that in-between tones, the 7 levels of tone, which are basically mid-tones when you're talking about really light and really dark tones. All those mid-tones, there's about, maybe 5 or so in there that vary, and they show the curve of the round toes, or the curve of the round edge of the foot, or the ball of the foot. That's how you're going to get that across to your audience. All right, so that's going to do it for now, and I'll talk with you in a couple of days.